Well, you have said that you want to block visas for nations that ask for slavery reparations.
Yeah.
You're basically saying you won't give visas then to huge swathes of the Caribbean and Africa. Let's just list the countries that have asked for slavery reparations: Barbados, Jamaica, Guyana, Antigua, Barbuda, Bahamas, Belize, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad, Tobago, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya. The list goes on.
Let's talk about the audacity. The UK's Reform Party just threatened to ban visas for Ghana and 16 other African and Caribbean nations, all because they asked for reparations for the transatlantic slave trade.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to the channel. Have you ever been tortured, or have you ever seen someone who is being tortured? So, this video is very important for both UK and other countries in Jamaica, Caribbean and Africa. Because what happens during the slavery collides with modern immigration policy and international politics. A controversial proposal from the UK political party, Reform, UK has sparkled intense debate across Britain and the Commonwealth. The proposal suggests that if the party were to form a government, the UK could restrict or even ban visas for citizens of countries that formally demand reparation from Britain for its historical role in the transatlantic slave trade. The proposal has raised serious questions about history, justice, immigration, economics, and the future of Britain's relationship with countries such as Jamaica, Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya. So, if you have been tortured or you have ever seen someone who has been tortured, you will understand why these countries are asking for reparation. Thank you for tuning in. I'll be coming back with more reaction and commentary. Stay tuned and remember to like, subscribe, and share. The original credit goes to the original creator of this video. Thank you.
Want to block visas for nations that ask for slavery reparations.
Yeah.
You're basically saying you won't give visas then to huge swathes of the Caribbean and Africa. Let's just list the countries that have asked for slavery reparations: Barbados, Jamaica, Guyana, Antigua, Barbuda, Bahamas, Belize, Grenada, St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Trinidad, Tobago, Ghana, Nigeria, Kenya. The list goes on. You think that's a feasible and operative plan?
If they
that
continue to make, if they can make, well, being thwarted by lawfare. Here's another thing people really need to understand. And I think people watching GB News do understand this. His Majesty's Parliament is sovereign. This notion that, a minister will sit there and a prime minister will sit there and just get overruled by courts. If we pass primary legislation to ensure those things happen, it will happen. You can mark my words on that. And do we again, it
so
was,
you're quite happy blocking people coming from the Caribbean or Africa, say for instance if they have relatives here, you're going to say you just can't come because your country, even if you don't personally support it, supports slavery reparations?
I think you're making the exact argument about why there are outrageous demands that people watching this programme should pay them reparations.
Outrageous to demand slavery reparations, but people might equally think that it might be used
well, then, if it's outrageous, it's about time Britain. Do you not agree, Camilla? It's about time Britain grew a backbone. And what we're saying is, if Nigel Farage is our Prime Minister, we're not going to allow Britain to be slapped around on the world stage. By the way, number one, Keir Starmer abstained outrageously in the UN vote about this matter. Number two, over the last 20 years, and again, the Tories are in power for the majority of that, those countries you just listed who are demanding reparations, we granted those countries millions of visas and issued them £6 billion, with a B in foreign aid. We've had enough of British people being taken advantage of.
Some of the people that come from the Caribbean and Africa have made their lives here and are paying taxes and are embracing British values, aren't they?
In which case, they are almost certainly British citizens.
Talking about banning visas from countries who are demanding reparations from Britain. Now, the problem here is that we are talking about a number of Commonwealth countries in the Caribbean. How do you think this is going to go down with His Majesty the King?
Well, we're most concerned about doing the right thing for the British people. Look, there's a racket going on now for years. Countries are lining up claiming, in some cases, trillions of pounds in reparations for supposed crimes from centuries ago. Britain was the first major power to abolish the slave trade in 1807 and spent almost 2% of its national income for 60 years enforcing that ban on the high seas, lost thousands of heroic soldiers through sailors through the West Africa squadron. So what Reform is saying is simple. Any country, if Reform's in government, any country that makes a vexatious demand like this for reparations, which is obviously insulting and outrageous, we're not going to tolerate it anymore and just allow Britain to be slapped around. And British taxpayers will no longer just be an ATM for ethnic grievances from across the world. We will ban visa issuances to nationals of those countries. And over the last 20 years, Tory and Labour governments have issued 3.8 million visas to nationals of those countries and £6.6 billion in aid. That'll go to.
A UK political party called Reform UK is proposing to ban the visas of countries who had voted for reparations for slavery. As an advocate of Jamaica and someone who is in talks and has conversations and knows people on the ground and has family in Jamaica, I would like to invite you all to a protest that's occurring on April 13th to speak out against British colonialism and to retrieve Jamaica back to the people. Now, although Jamaica claims to be an independent country, it is still very much owned by the British. The British High Court have the ability to overturn and override what the Jamaican courts say. And that's why we've seen certain people released from prison when the Jamaican government did not support that as such. Nor did many of the Jamaican people, let's just be honest. But most importantly, the British monarchy has taken advantage of the vulnerability of the people in Jamaica. They are guilty of violating the human rights of Jamaicans. And it's time for Jamaicans to stand up against them. It's time for all of us to use our voice and start speaking out. And if you are in Jamaica, then please join us on March 13 to speak out against the injustices that have been happening toward Jamaicans in Jamaica at the hands of the British monarchy. Join us on April 13 at 11 a.m. at the JDF Admiral office. Fight with your fellow Jamaicans and stand up for what's right. This is the No British Imposter protest. If you'd like more information, please check the caption where you can give us a shout and we can support you along the way. One Jamaica.
The UK is not playing with these Africans or Caribbeans. They say if you ask for reparations because of the transatlantic slave trade, you're not coming to their country.
Reform UK would block visas from anyone from countries which have demanded reparations over slavery. This would halt legal migration from 17 countries that are calling for financial compensation over Britain's role in the slave trade. The ban would block people from getting work, study and temporary visas. Reform Zia Youssef has said the bank is closed and the door is locked for anyone who wanted to use history as a weapon to drain our treasury. So which 17 countries would be affected? African nations Nigeria, Kenya and Ghana are among the countries which have called for compensation, as well as 11 Caribbean countries, including the Bahamas, Barbados and Jamaica. Reform's announcement comes as the government and the royal family face pressure to agree to talks on reparations. Experts have estimated these would amount to trillions of pounds.
They have a point. It's like y'all double dipping. Because everybody benefited from the transatlantic slave trade. You take the Caribbeans, they got countries out of the transatlantic slave trade. There was people, indigenous people in these islands before the transatlantic slave trade took place, but afterwards, now the descendants of those slaves are basically over those countries. When the oppressed become the oppressors, that's the sum of it, right? And you talk about Africa, especially Ghana and Nigeria, they was begging the British not to abolish slavery because it was going to impact their economy. I feel like the U.S. should adopt the same policies. If your country is talking about reparations from the United States, when the United States had nothing to do with it, the only people that should be talking about reparations from the United States is Black Americans. But yeah, let me know what y'all think about this policy, because this is from the Reform UK party. If they become the dominant force in Parliament, this is what they're going to implement. Shout out to Nigel. Let me be specific. The only people deserve reparations from the transatlantic slave trade in America, the United States, is Black Americans. And that Ghanaian president, yeah, he greedy.
So you did not vote on the resolution. You don't want to return the stolen artifacts. You don't want to pay reparations. And now you want to deny visas?
Let's talk about something that should concern everyone. A resolution led by Ghana at the United Nations is pushing for global discussion surrounding the transatlantic slave trade and reparations. This is something that has been internationally recognized for decades. But here's where things get extremely disturbing. Reform UK is suggesting denying visas for people who are from countries that are demanding reparations. Let that sink in for a minute. Punishing everyday citizens, not governments, for historical accountability? That's not a resolution. That is literally retaliation. Visa systems are supposed to be about travel, fairness, opportunity, not political punishment. This does not resolve anything, and it doesn't change history. It deepens the division. And if we start weaponizing immigration policy like this, where does it stop? Let me know your thoughts down in the comments. I'll see you in the next video.
Let's talk about the audacity. The UK's Reform Party just threatened to ban visas for Ghana and 16 other African and Caribbean nations, all because they asked for reparations for the transatlantic slave trade. 7 European countries, including the UK, enslaved and trafficked more than 15 million Africans across the Atlantic. And that stolen labor built Western wealth. Now they want to punish the descendants for asking to be repaid. Last month, the UN declared that the transatlantic slave trade was the gravest crime against humanity, and they called for reparations. The UK abstained. Then they told Africa that the bank is closed. But they don't want you to think about this. 101 companies on the London Stock Exchange control $1.3 trillion in African resources. And that's just in oil, coal, platinum, gold, and diamonds. The UK extracts $116 billion more from Africa every year than it returns in aid. Britain is South Africa's single largest international investor, with more than $65 billion invested. A recent UK-Nigeria trade deal alone was worth about $1 billion. Now, they need Africa's land. They need Africa's resources and Africa's labor and Africa's markets. If African nations banned British executives and investors the way Reform wants to ban African people, Britain would feel it immediately. You see, Africa is demanding justice. When Britain abolished slavery in 1833, they paid $25 billion in today's money, not to the enslaved, to the enslavers. The African people got nothing. And now their descendants are called an ethnic grievance? This is not policy. This is white supremacy with a parliamentary stamp. The refusal to repair is the continuation of the original sin. Africa holds the power. Africa holds the resources. Africa holds the future. And if you didn't know, now you know.
This is the reason why. Because Jamaica is pushing for reparations, the UK, the party that is currently in the opposition, say anytime them come in a power, them are going to make sure that Jamaica get banned. Because Jamaica is one of the countries that have always lobbied for reparations. You see, Dr. Ali from Donga, Guyana, I remember him go on one interview with one of the man them, and as soon as him get the opportunity, him tell him, say, look here, no one never have a problem for benefit from slavery. The whole want to sit down up there in the White Houses and all of those places well comfortable benefiting from slaves, but yet still when it come time for to pay back black people, everybody hush hush and everybody broke. There was a black person who came in my comments and asked, why is it that we should be reparated when we're not slaves? Why is it that they reparated people who never owned slaves back in 2015? Why would they do such a thing? Everybody had the money to pay the descendants of slave owners, but when it come time for we get Woolika shillings, everybody have a problem. There are plantations in this country that are still owned by the descendants of slave owners. Plantations that mine and your ancestors build, them can block we from every country in this world. I don't care. Wow, with reparations. That's how we are defending. That's how me are telling you, so on the need for remain focused. All of this, black people are a set of people. Black people remind me of Jacob and Esau. Esau was willing to give away his birthright for a little food. We out here were willing to give away everything, every single thing for one little visa.
I read the news so that you don't have to. Imagine the government saying, if your country asks us to pay for slavery, we're going to ban you from coming here. Not the politicians, not diplomats, you. Students, nurses, workers. Well, that's actually what's being proposed. So this headline says, Reform UK accused of risking economy with visa threat over reparations. Wanna know, Wagwan? Come in, let me tell you, because it'll be unsurprising to you that this is coming from Reform UK, who are currently doing well in the polls, where their Home Affairs spokesperson, Zia Youssef, basically said that if any country demands slavery reparations from the UK, a reform government would stop issuing visas to their citizens. We're not talking about random countries here, we're talking about places like Jamaica, Ghana, Nigeria, aka countries with deep historical ties to Britain, and thousands of people coming here every single year to study, to work and contribute to the economy. Okay, let me break this down to you why this is not just wild, but it's also economically dumb. If you look last year alone, Nigeria issued 150,000 plus visas, Ghana 38,000 plus visas. These aren't just numbers, mind you, these are NHS workers, these are students paying international fees, these are skilled migrants filling labour shortages. So what Reform are basically saying is we're going to punish our own economy to make a political point about history. But they're framing it as, you know what, Britain's already did enough. We abolished slavery, didn't we? Cool. But what they don't want to mention is that the UK paid £20 million in 1837, not to the enslaved people, no, but to the enslavers. That's about £2 billion in today's money. And not only that, the descendants of enslaved people were paying taxes that contributed to reparations for the enslavers of their ancestors because they finished paying that bill in 2015. So let's be clear, compensation did happen, just not to the people that were actually enslaved. So what does this all mean? Well, politically, it's just classic culture war stuff. Of course, it's reform. Economically, they are risking labour shortages, they are risking university funding, as well as strained international relationships. And socially, they're basically saying to entire nations, because your government said something that we don't like, you people are no longer welcome here. And this is where it gets a little bit uncomfortable for certain people, because if you are from certain communities, African, Caribbean, and you're backing policies like this because you think it's economically smart, it's not. It's emotional politics dressed up as economics. Because there is nothing economically rational about cutting thousands of workers, students, and taxpayers from your own economy. In case you think this is about reparations, it isn't. It's immigration policy being used as a political weapon again.
Do you think that it is time that the UK, England, pay up Jamaica its reparation money? Comment me inside of the comment section. Now, since the days of Michael Manley, Bruce Golding, PJ Patterson, Edward Seaga, all former prime ministers had one thing in common, that Britain must pay up its reparation money for slavery to the Jamaican people. Well, I'm here to tell you what Britain says about that, and any country that is currently seeking reparation, you need to hear about this. This is a major story, all right? It's a Wednesday, and I'm early with this post. One post a day, keep idleness away. So here is Virtual TV, not forgetting to give you a post every single day, all right? Yes, different location, different setup, with a whole heap of new things to come. I've been saying that for quite some time, but just wait. In the meantime, leave a like on the video, share the video, repost the video, and follow the page. Now, it has been a long-standing debate and conversation that the UK, Britain, should pay up its reparation money to Jamaica for slavery, right? Right. And as I listed, many former prime ministers all had a single thing in common, whether JLP or PNP, that they must pay. Well, according to the UK Reform Political Party, any country, including Jamaica, that is seeking from Britain for reparation will be blocked permanently by visas if you're seeking reparation. Now, they say that this is the move that they will implement when they come into power. They're saying this: work visas, visiting visas, visas at all levels if you're from Jamaica, and if the Jamaican government is seeking reparation when they step into power, when visas or visa entries will be blocked permanently, including countries like Jamaica, if you're going to seek reparation. What are your thoughts on that? I will be giving you more updates. Stay tuned. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Have you ever been happy to be right and at the same time sad to be right, but at the same time you're just happy that you were right? I was in a TikTok group with 25 people and we were discussing the gravest crime of all times, which is slavery. It was voted, right? And England did not finalize their part in the situation. America just said no, nay, nada. I believe Argentina and Israel did the same thing. But the conversation we were having was simply about the reparation, you know, the payout. And I said, we're not getting any money. Stop going back and forth about the money. And the Jamaicans there, they were so mad I was in the box. And I said, I was also like, you know what? Where are we even going after the money? And there was this big conversation. No one understood me because I know something. I've been watching politics for a very long time and I knew something was going to happen. So this is what happened. Exactly what I said. I said, listen up, people. Before they gave us a cent, a dollar, what they're going to do is just ban us no more visa. Because they know most Caribbean and most African people are obsessed with England, Canada, America. Obsessed with Europe. They're obsessed with being into these places. And every time they want to eat us, the first thing they do is say to us, you know, we're not going to give you any visa, we're going to cancel your visa. Every time they use it against Jamaica. So I know, I just knew that the way to shut everybody up is to say, if you insist, if you really want it, then you're no longer allowed to come in our country. And because we are greedy to go there, we will just back down. Zia, or Zia, is that the name of the Pakistani politician guy? That's exactly what he said a few days ago. Yes! I was right! Yes, I was right! You know I'm 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 right! Everybody know I'm right! Yes, I was right! He said, if you insist on getting money from us, then we won't give you guys visas anymore. We will block all of you from entering to our country. I knew it. They weren't going to give us any money. Any money. In fact, Zia, what he said is that 6 billion already been paid out. 6 billion. I never knew 6 billion was paid out. So I am here thinking, if 6 billion was paid out, and if we're going to split that over about 35 countries, hold on, let me calculate. My maths class never get me prepared for this. 171 million and some change would be for each country. Somebody get a calculator and help me fix this. Per each country. Now, how we never heard of Jamaica getting 171 million pounds from England? We never heard of that. But that is what he said. He said 6 billion. Someone calculate, help a sister out. And then, what we have, 2.5 million people on the island? 64 pound and some cents, right? Somebody help a sister, help a sister, help a sister. Went to maths class, accounting class, but I wasn't prepared for this. So anyway, so 64 pound and some cent for each Jamaican. Where is my 64 pound? I want my 64 pound. I just pay my tax my parents' tax, my grandma tax, and a mistake made and I pay for my great grandma tax. I have never even seen my great grandma. So that money would belongs to me. That money, that £64 and a couple of cents would belongs to me. Which politician got my money? I would like to go and pick it up. Is it the one there now? The one before? Mr. Patterson, I genuinely hope you're not the one who got my money. Anywhere now where I can find Mr. Patterson? That's our former Prime Minister. Maybe he's the one that got my £64. I would greatly appreciate my £64, Mr. Patterson, if you can tell me where to meet you and the time. I'll be there to get my £64. I appreciate it. But I'm telling you, they're not going to give us any money. And because so many of us are so greedy to get their visa, that is what they're going to use and shut down every single country. Jamaica, Trinidad, Ghana, all of us. Kenya, all of us. They're going to shut down all of us with their visa. And I was right. Bye.
They will gain their votes, so do not panic about this. It's nothing for now. Now, this is about history. This is about fairness. This is about justice. But my question is, how does it concern the visa? How does it concern the getting visa or not getting visa? If there is anything, sort it out with those countries. Shouldn't be affecting the ordinary man trying to better his life. So what do you think?
Should the UK block visas just because a country asks for slavery reparations? Reform UK says that if a country asks Britain for slavery reparations, people from that country should be blocked from getting UK visas. It was reported on the 7th of April 2026, and the proposal will link to countries including Jamaica and Ghana. It is a political proposal and not current UK law. From an immigration perspective, this is a huge statement because it would mean ordinary visa applicants could be affected based on their position of their government, not because of anything they personally did. Talking about workers, students, visitors, family members and business people. Legally, as things stand today, UK visa applications are decided under the immigration rules and the requirements of the relevant route. There is no current immigration rule that says someone can be refused a UK visa simply because their country is seeking reparations from Britain. This is a political stunt and not an active immigration policy. The wider backdrop is that calls for reparations have been growing internationally. The Guardian also reports that Commonwealth leaders intended to continue pressing the issue despite this proposal. So the real question is, should immigration control be used as a political weapon in historical disputes? Because once visas start being tied to international political disagreements, that goes far beyond border control. This isn't law right now, but it's definitely the kind of proposal migrants and businesses and advisors should be watching closely. Comment below and let me know what you think.
Welcome back to the channel. Thank you for staying tuned, and I believe you have already subscribed, liked, and you will share. Now, in today's video, we take a closer look at this controversial proposal, the arguments on both sides, and what it could mean for Britain and the countries involved. The proposal, according to the discussion represented in the video, Reform UK announced in April 2026 that it will consider banning visa insurance, including visas for work, study, and travel to nationals of countries that formally demand reparation from the United Kingdom. The policy is based on the argument that Britain has already taken significant steps to address the legacy of slavery. Supporters point to the abolition of the slave trade in 1805-07 and the work of the West Africa Squadron, which was involved in efforts to suppress the transatlantic slave trade. From this perspective, Reform UK officials argue that Britain should not be expected to provide financial compensation for its historical claims. They have described demands for reparations as reasonable and have argued that British taxpayers should not be treated as a source of money for historical grievances. This position has attracted support from those who believe that modern generations should not be held financially responsible for events that happened many generations ago. However, critics strongly disagree. The counter-argument, one of the central arguments raised in the video, concerns the financial history surrounding the abolition of slavery. Critics point out that when slavery was abolished throughout most of the British Empire in 1833, the compensation provided by the British government went to slave owners, not to the people who had been enslaved. This historical detail has become an important part of the modern reparations debate. The argument is that Britain did, in fact, make financial payments connected to the end of slavery, but the people who suffered under slavery were not the recipients of that compensation. The video also highlights the fact that the financial burden associated with those historical payments continued for generations, with British taxpayers reportedly finishing repayments of the related debt in 2015. For critics, this history raises a difficult question. If compensation was once paid to slave owners, should the descendants and communities affected by slavery now be dismissed when they ask for reparative justice? This is at the heart of the disagreement. Supporters of reparations argue that the consequences of slavery did not simply disappear when the institution was abolished. They point to the long-term economic and social effects of colonialism and slavery and argue that these historical injustices continue to influence inequalities today. Opponents, however, argue that modern governments and citizens should not be punished for events that occurred centuries ago. The impact on ordinary people, another major concern raised in the video, is the potential impact of a visa ban on ordinary citizens. If such a policy were implemented, it could potentially affect students seeking education in Britain, skilled workers looking for employment, families traveling for holidays, and professionals contributing to the British economy. Critics argue that these individuals may have nothing to do with their government's positions on reparation. For example, a student from Jamaica or Ghana could be applying to study at the British University without having any involvement in political discussion about reparations. A healthcare worker from Nigeria could be traveling to Britain to take up a job in the National Health Service. A professional from Kenya could be contributing skills to the British economy. Critics therefore describe the proposal as a form of political retaliation that could punish individuals for the position taken by their governments. The video also emphasizes the contribution migrants from Commonwealth countries have made to important sectors of the UK economy, including healthcare, education, transportation, and other essential services. This creates another major question. Could a policy designed to pressure foreign governments ultimately hurt Britain itself? Economic and diplomatic concerns. The proposal could also have wider economic and diplomatic consequences. Britain relies heavily on international migration to fill important positions across its economy. If large numbers of workers, students, and professionals from Commonwealth countries were prevented from entering the country, certain sectors could face additional pressure. Critics warn that the policy could contribute to labor shortages and make it more difficult for Britain to recruit skilled workers. There could be also diplomatic consequences. Countries such as Jamaica, Ghana, Nigeria, and Kenya have long-standing historical, cultural, and economic relationship with the United Kingdom. A visa ban linked to reparations demand could create significant tension between Britain and this nation. The video describes the proposal as an example of what some critics consider emotional politics. A policy designed to send a strong political message rather than one based on long-term economic interest. Supporters, however, may argue that Britain has the right to determine its immigration policies and that the government should not be pressured into paying reparations. This disagreement reflects a much larger global debate about how nations should confront difficult chapters in their history. The bigger reparations debate, which is the controversial, comes at a time when discussions about reparatory justice are gaining greater international attention. The legacy of the transatlantic slave trade remains a major issue in international politics, particularly among nations whose populations were directly affected by slavery and colonialism. Supporters of reparations argue that historical injustices created economic disadvantages that continues to affect societies today. They believe that wealthy nations that benefited from slavery and colonial system should consider ways to address those historical consequences. Opponents argue that reparations are difficult to calculate, political divisive, and potentially unfair to people who had no personal involvement in historical events. The debate therefore goes far beyond immigration. It touches one question of historical responsibility, national identity, economic justice, and international relations. In conclusion, the Reform UK proposal has opened a major debate about the relationship between Britain's immigration policies and the unresolved legacy of slavery. Supporters say Britain has already done enough and should not be forced to pay for historical claims. Critics argue that restricting visas for citizens of countries demanding reparation would unfairly punish ordinary people while damaging Britain's economy and diplomatic relationships. The debate also forces the world to confront a difficult question. How should modern societies respond to historical injustices that continue to shape the present? For now, the proposal remains a political campaign promise rather than active UK law. But the controversy surrounding it demonstrates that the debate over slavery, reparations, migration, and Britain's relationship with the Commonwealth is far from over. As discussions about reparation continues around the world, the decision made by governments could have consequences that extend far beyond politics, affecting students, workers, families, businesses, and international relationships for years to come. What do you think? Should historical reparations be addressed through financial compensation, or should modern generation not be held responsible for events that happened centuries ago? Share your thoughts in the comment section, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on notification so that you don't miss any of our videos. Thank you and have a nice time.